up? It's Young Retro, aka Retro P, aka Joshua Porter, and I'm here again to give y'all the Biblically studies where we study the Bible. You already know we still in that Proverbs. Last week we did Proverbs 20 verses 21 through 30. This week we're doing Proverbs 21 verses 1 through 11. And you already know Proverbs about that wisdom. We're gonna keep doing this so we can gain that wisdom, we can apply it to our lives and be great. So hopefully y'all are ready. Hopefully y'all have been listening, tuning in, taking notes, and applying it to your life. Before we get started, y'all know we gotta pray. God, thank you for allowing us to meet again and have another great experience with each other, Lord, for us to just take in this knowledge and use in our everyday lives, Lord. Please allow us to just, when we have these troubles that come up, use our wisdom and go with the best route possible. Look out for you for guidance, Lord, and just listen wherever you're saying. That way we have the easiest route there, and we know that we are fulfilling your wishes. In Jesus' name, amen. So let's go ahead and get started, y'all. We're not gonna play no games today. We're gonna start with Proverbs 21, verse 1 and 2 in the Amplified Bible. So here we go. Proverbs 21, verse 1. The king's heart is like channels of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it whichever way he wishes. Verse 2. Every man's way is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs and examines the heart of people and their motives. So verse 1, I feel like that's breaking it down really simple. It's just saying, like, yeah, he's the king. Usually, you know, kings are in charge. They don't have to answer anybody. Whatever they say goes, but it's just letting you know that, like the Bible says, you know, the King of Kings, Jesus God, the King of Kings, you know? So even though he's the king and he's calling the shots, it says the king's heart is like in the hand of the Lord. So the Lord is still the king over him. If the Lord wants him to do this, the king's gonna have to do that. If the Lord wants him to do this, the king's gonna have to do that. And the thing is, God gives us free will though. So he's not gonna, you know, force you to do anything. Like Pastor Billy says, God is a gentleman. So just because, you know, the king's doing the wrong thing doesn't mean God's gonna intervene and make him do the right thing. He gave us free will for a reason. He doesn't want anybody to just, you know, have to be forced to love him or anything like that. He's just letting this man know, like, he's in charge. So if he really wanted him to do this, he'll do that regardless. Verse 2, everybody thinks they're right when they're looking at their own eyes. From your own perspective, you're gonna think you're right. You know, unless like for some reason you know you're completely wrong, but most of the time if you're in an argument or you're doing something, you feel like you're doing the right thing and the other person feels like they're doing the right thing. So everybody is right from their own perspective. But it's saying right here, the Lord weighs and examines the hearts of people and their motives. So you could be looking like you're doing the right thing, you know, here on earth, but is your heart doing the right thing? So like for example, somebody might start up a charity, giving back to people in the community and all that, and they thinking that they're doing the right thing, you know, they're giving back to the community, but maybe they're doing it because they know it's gonna bring attention to them and they're gonna get money the other way and praise, and people are gonna be like, oh, he's such a great person. That's not doing it for the right reasons. You're doing it for the fame and the fortune and people looking at you. But God knows your heart, and he knows you're not doing it just to be genuine and be nice. So that's what it means. So that person may think they're doing the absolute right thing, but deep in their heart, they're doing it for the wrong reasons. And God knows. He examines and looks, and he's like, okay, that's not the correct reason. And if you ask him, Lord, am I doing this for the right reasons? Can you help me correct it? He'll help you with it. You like we're saying, like the king. If the king said, Lord, I feel like I'm doing the wrong thing, you know, can you help me? Then the Lord will intervene and show him the right thing. But he's not just gonna go out there and do it for him. You know, you gotta ask the Lord. You gotta, you know, want him to do it. Like he's a gentleman, like we said, he's not gonna force you to do anything. So that's verse 1 and 2. So let's go ahead and break down verse 3. Verse 3, to do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice for wrongs repeatedly committed. So God doesn't want you just sacrificing stuff all the time just because you feel like you need to sacrifice it if you didn't have to be in that situation in the first place. If you're walking with the Lord, doing the right thing, keep your eyes on him, then he's gonna feel more pleased with what you're doing, and it's gonna be more acceptable to him than you feel like you gotta sacrifice something or like do a situation a little different, because God didn't even tell you to do that situation. So now you're sacrificing things that honestly you didn't have to do for wrongs repeatedly committed. Like you didn't have to be in those situations, and you keep repeating them. So, you know, the Lord's gonna be like, I don't know why you keep doing that same thing, and it's not gonna be as acceptable as if you just listen to him, walk righteous, and you know, you're walking with justice, you know, justified, all that stuff. If you're walking with the Lord, you're justified. That's all I gotta say. So make sure y'all doing those things. Verse 4, haughty and arrogant eyes and a proud heart the lamp of the wicked, their self-centered pride is sin in the eyes of God. Being prideful is a sin. When you're too prideful, it's a sin. So you can have pride and stuff. Like if, you feel like you're a great friend or you're a great father, you can be proud of that. Like, oh yeah, I'm a great dad and all that stuff. And then when you take it too far or something, like you're like, oh, I'm the best dad ever. I never do anything wrong. I'm the best friend ever. Never make anybody mad. I'm always doing the right thing, helping them out. That's being too prideful. And that right there becomes arrogance. And then once you have the arrogance in your eyes and then the pride in your heart, you're not looking correctly anymore. And now you're just doing too much. And that right there goes to show you that you're filled with that self-centered pride. And that's when it becomes a sin in the eyes of God. So you got to make sure that you're checking yourself, you check in with God to make sure that you're not doing too much, you're not getting too proud, and you're still looking at things with a clear lens, like with perspective. That's the main thing, perspective, like we said earlier. So it's great to, feel proud for yourself for like things that you've done and all that. Just make sure you don't take it too far to the levels of like where you feel like you can't even be wrong, nobody can come and correct you, there's no criticism or anything like that. So yeah, haughty and arrogant eyes and a proud heart are not the combination you want to have when it comes to yourself. Make sure that you keep being humble. That's important. You can be prideful, but don't be full of pride. Be proud of what you've done, but know the limit. And yeah, don't be arrogant. Be humble and just keep living life, walking with God. That's the main thing. Let's go to verse 5. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance and advantage, but everyone who acts in haste comes surely to poverty. Don't act in haste. What does haste mean? Don't move too quickly. So I think we talked about this a little bit last week too. So let's say you had a basketball game coming up and it's a championship game and your coach doesn't have any practices from the last game until this championship game. Y'all don't talk or anything. And then you just come into the gym that day and your coach is like, all right, so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna lock them up, we're gonna do this and that. All right, go out there. That's acting too quickly, that's haste. Y'all didn't do any planning, y'all didn't do any diligent work, no thorough work. So now, all of a sudden, you just got all this information. It's kind of like what they say, like a house of cards. It's like no structure. Yeah, it's built fast, it's pretty and all that stuff, but it's not gonna stand. So when you go into that game, your game plan is weak. There was no thoroughness to it. There was no real examination of what to do. You didn't even scout the competition. You just went to the gym, looked at them like, all right, this is what we're gonna do real quick. And the other team, they've been planning diligently. Since y'all's last game, they have seen y'all play. They know exactly who can shoot, who cannot shoot. They know who to defend. They've been talking game plans. What if this happens? All right, we're gonna do this, that. So their plan is gonna stand and is gonna bring more abundance, and now they have the advantage. Most likely, which team's gonna win the championship? The team that sat there and planned since day one. They know exactly who's who. And y'all over there don't even know who's who, don't know what's going on. You just know you're in the championship game. So that's why you gotta not do things with haste. You gotta be diligent. And then when you're being diligent, it brings abundance and it brings the advantage. So that's all that means right there. So that's a good example. So same thing with school, like with tests. Have you ever noticed, like, if teacher says pop quiz, you're not gonna do as well if she told you, all right, the quiz is gonna be in 2 weeks. Now, that's up to you if you're gonna study for those 2 weeks or not. With the pop quiz, you have no choice. Your plan is, all right, I'm about to take this test, I should have been listening. But if the teacher comes in and she's like, all right, the quiz is in 2 weeks, make sure y'all study. Now that's up to you. Now, the person who sits there and actually studies the material for those 2 weeks knows exactly what the material is, knows the plan they're gonna go in with, and like the strategy, they're gonna do better on the quiz rather than the person who found out they had the 2 weeks and decided, yeah, I'm gonna study about 10 minutes before class. So that's all it means. It's up to you if you're gonna strategize, if you're gonna make that diligent plan. And then, of course, if you do that, of course, it's gonna bring the advantage and the abundance. If you act in haste, if you act too quickly, like it says comes surely to poverty. So it didn't say maybe poverty, it says surely. That means 100%. If you keep acting hasty, you're gonna be broke. That's the same thing with the get rich quick schemes that we talked about last week. The people who be just finding really quick ways to get rich and never last. Those people that sat there and strategized, made a plan, invested, made sure it was solid, did the research, they are the people that are still rich to this day and don't even have to work. Their money, they got that money 30 years ago and they're still living off that same money versus these get rich quick people who are always looking for their next dollar. even though they might look like they're rich on paper, they are in poverty. They're living check to check. They gotta move like this. Otherwise, it's not gonna be sustainable. It's not gonna last. So verse 6, acquiring treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor, the seeking in pursuit of death. So that ties in perfectly to what we were just talking about. It says, acquiring treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor. So if you're out there acquiring your money by lying, by scamming, by scheming, it's not gonna last you. Right here, it tells you it's a fleeting vapor, which means, I don't know if y'all know about vapor, but vapor's gone like that. It doesn't stick around or anything like that. So if you're out there not being honest about your money, out there lying with your money, trying to scam people, trying to find the best way to get the most really quick, it's not gonna last you. And right here, it tells you what does it lead to. It's a fleeting vapor, the seeking and pursuit of death. So right there, it says the pursuit of death. So that means you're sitting there purposely chasing after death when you're doing these things. You're pursuing it. It's not like if you keep doing these things, death will come and find you. You're finding death. You're going out there looking for it. So you gotta make sure you guys don't lie about anything, but when you're acquiring those treasures or anything like that, that's literally what it means. Like, think about it like this: somebody who robs a bank or something. Let's say they plan to rob a bank and all that. How are they acquiring their treasures? They're going the wrong way about it. They're lying. Even though they're not physically lying, they're putting on the mask. They're doing all the wrong things. They're not being true to what they're doing, So, and most of the time, if you're gonna rob a bank, it's gonna lead to you getting caught, going to jail, or, unfortunately dying. So that's the situations that it's telling you right there. And what does that say about the pursuit of death? They didn't have to go and do that. They went and decided to do that versus, let me sit down, let me read these books, let me listen to these lectures from these people who've already done it. See, that's wisdom. You sit there and listen to people who've already been through the situations, who are money smart, they're wise. They know, okay, don't invest here. If this situation happens, make sure you do this. Make sure you set some money to the side versus the people that be like, man, don't worry about all that. Let me show you how to make a quick buck real quick. So the people who sit there and plan and, will teach you how to save that money, how to build that money, those are the people you want to listen to. And especially if they're not lying about it, they're being truthful about it, and you feel good in your heart, you feel like you're following what God's telling you to do, and make sure y'all tithe that 10%, y'all gonna be straight. You're not pursuing death. You're covered. God's got you. But just make sure y'all are not out there lying about your treasures, lying about anything, because in that scenario, you're pursuing death. You're going after it. It's not coming after you. Verse 7, the violence of the wicked will return to them and drag them away, like fish caught in a net, because they refuse to act with justice. That goes to show you, I know you've heard it before, somebody does something to you and you really want to do something back, but they always say, oh, it'll come back around, let God handle it, you don't have to go out there and do it yourself. They're gonna get theirs back. What goes around comes around. That's the saying. That's basically what that's saying right there. The violence of the wicked will return to them and drag them away like a fish caught in a net, because they refuse to act with justice. So if you're not acting with justice, like those situations, like bullies, for example, you can't just bully a kid and then not expect anything to come back to you. It doesn't mean that necessarily the kid's gonna do something bad, but there might be repercussions. You might get suspended from school from the principal. You might find somebody who's bigger than you and they're gonna start bullying you. So it's like, you're not gonna get away with those things. So make sure that, you're justified in what you're doing. You're always checking with the Lord, that way you're not doing violent and wicked acts, because if you do them things, they're gonna come right back to you. You're not gonna get away with it. Even if you're by yourself and you feel like you completely got away with it, you're not. God knows, and eventually it's gonna come back to get you. All right, verse 8, the way of the guilty is exceedingly crooked, but as for the pure, his conduct is upright. If you're living a guilty life, everything you're gonna do is guilty, no matter what. So, you're living crooked, you're not living right with the Lord. Versus if you're living pure, your conduct is upright. It's like the house of cards again. If you're living pure, you got that solid foundation, you got that strong house that if a tornado came through, it's gonna stand still. But if you're living guilty, you got the house of cards. If a gust of wind comes through, it's over for you, let alone the tornado. So you gotta make sure that you're living pure. So verse 9, it's better to live in a corner of the housetop on the flat roof exposed to the weather than in a house shared with a quarrelsome, contentious woman. Nobody wants to be stuck in a situation with somebody that is always getting on them, that's never, really supporting them. It's always making them feel bad about themselves. So even though it says woman, just think about it like anybody. You don't want to be stuck in a house with somebody who's always getting on your nerves. it's literally saying it's better to live on top of the house than live with somebody in the house who's just gonna keep nagging you, keep critiquing you, especially when they're not trying to help you, they're just getting on you. So just make sure that you're not that person. Make sure that you're going out your way to actually help the people that are around your household, and just make sure that it's the best situation for both of y'all, because if not, somebody's gonna be on that roof and they're gonna be feeling better than if they're living in the house with you. So you gotta make sure that y'all keep that in mind. And we're down to the last two verses. We're gonna do 10 and 11. So verse 10, the soul of the wicked desires evil like an addictive substance. His neighbor finds no compassion in his eyes. Verse 11, when the scoffer is punished, the naive observes the lesson and becomes wise. But when the wise and teachable person is instructed, he receives knowledge. The verse 10 is just saying, like, yeah, the wicked, they desire evil. They go seeking out for evil, and it becomes addictive. So once you are walking down that path, once you do like one crazy thing, of course you're going to do another crazy thing, especially if you got away with it, because you're going to see how much you can get away with. So you got to make sure you don't walk down that path. You got to make sure you keep walking in right with God, right standing with God. Make sure that you guys are avoiding these crazy situations, because we already know, even though it looks like they're getting away with it, even though they didn't get caught and they're trying to do more, the other verse told us that you don't get away with it. It's going to come back around to get you. So you got to make sure that you're in right standing with God. And then verse 11, of course, when the scoffer is punished, the naive observe the lesson and becomes wise. So yeah, so that's where they're telling you, like, when the person gets caught, the naive look at what happened, they're like, oh yeah, let me remember that way when I go and do it, you know, I won't have the same situation. So the naive look at it and they become wise. They observe the lesson and they store it, and now they're like, okay, so next time, that's gaining that wisdom. They just looked at the situation, didn't have to happen to them, and now they know to avoid that situation. And then it says, but when the wise and teachable person is instructed, he receives knowledge. So yeah, once you got that wisdom and you have somebody there to teach you and instruct you on how to use it, that's when it turns into knowledge. So you got the wisdom and now you got the knowledge to be able to pass it on to somebody else. That way they don't have to go through those situations as well. That is the Bible study. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure y'all keep on tuning in every week. That way you guys can hear what we have to say, and just continue to bless y'all and to just apply it to your lives, so you guys can live the easiest and best lives possible, and you can just continue to make God happy. And of course, if this is your first time listening, and if you haven't accepted God as your Lord and Savior, it's as easy as this. Romans 10:9 says, because if you acknowledge and confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, recognizing his power, authority, and majesty as God, and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. So make sure y'all do that, and then make sure y'all join a Bible teaching church just like this one. And make sure y'all tune in every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to hear more about this Proverbs, other stuff we have coming, and all that. And yeah, just keep on tuning in and make sure y'all just apply it. And then other than that, if y'all have any questions, make sure you hit us up at youth@hofmnc.org. That's youth@hofmnc.org. And y'all have a good rest of your week, and I'll see y'all next time.